First day of December. Happy World AIDS Day. CT Muga has the day's proverb.
Yes, huwezi kumvalisha mtu anayekimbia viatu.
Huwezi kumvalisha mtu anayekimbia viatu. Right.
Somebody who is running?
You cannot put shoes on him.
No, not really, you can't. But of course, it raises many other questions.
Very many interpretations of this. I've seen Julia on Twitter saying one of the other interpretations to this would be somebody who's a mjuaji, who's a know-it-all, you cannot tell them anything.
True.
They've already decided that they know what they need to do.
Yes.
You tell them about shoes, that's your story.
Precisely.
Not their story.
No, it isn't their story.
Yes.
No.
We have two guests who are joining us in the conversation. One of them will be joining us virtually shortly, but the other one is in the studio. Ambassador Ken Vitisia, he's a former ambassador to Burundi and special envoy to the International Conference on Great Lakes Region. Balozi, karibu sana to the Situation Room.
Asante. The Situation Room really looks cute. I've been watching it on TV and I said, these guys, they're really discussing things as they are.
Now that you're here in person, you actually now can feel the beauty.
I can feel the beauty. I can see the personalities who exude all the knowledge they have. And I'm here to share the little I have.
Tell us, because you've just done the traffic update, give us your own traffic experience this morning.
I'm telling you, your director, Mr. Barra, told me, do whatever it takes to be in the studio by 9 a.m. I'm at Sereni. The jam is packed. I tell my guy, Gili, who is driving, I tell Gili, hey, let me take a border. I get out, ask the border guy. He tells me, up there, even borders can't get. But for a K, I can get you to... I tell him I'm being told to do whatever it takes. So I tell the guy, get me there. If you do it before 9, the 1K you have. And you can see I'm here before 9, and so the guy is happy. Going to buy unga for the wife. So I've contributed to the economy also in another way.
Right. And your guy Gili will spend another 1,000 on fuel.
Yeah, my guy Gili is still is still in traffic. But today is when I really appreciated the borders. We take them for granted, but they are useful. They are useful in many times.
You know, the problem we have with them is not the utility factor. It's what we associate with them, the unruliness, and their inability to somehow adhere to traffic norms. They ride, as you say, anyhowly.
But if you're a pillion passenger,
yes,
like Baloz was just a short while ago,
you
appreciate.
I appreciated all the rules we broke.
Yes.
I missed being hit by a few cars here and there, falling off several potholes, but I'm here.
Yes.
Do whatever
so
it
they
takes.
meet a need.
Yes.
They meet a need.
But you know, part of the problem, I think, also, is if I look at what they do, there is a certain strict adherence to training that people who actually drive cars have. Do they have a similar strict adherence for training on motorbike riders?
Yeah, I doubt. Because
I also doubt it.
Once you can be able to get and it moves from point A to B.
That's it.
That's it.
The rest are details.
The rest are details. That's why we have so many who are in hospital, cut limbs, broken heads.
You know, there are government hospitals where there are wards that are specifically set aside for motorbike riders.
There's a border ward.
Yes.
Remember, we had a conversation with the NTSA director the other day, and he was telling us they are rolling out very many programs to try and bring as many of the border riders on board as possible to get them into proper training, get them into proper licensing. Because also very many of them are not licensed to ride borders. Anyway, we are glad that you made it.
Asante sana.
Asante sana for joining us. Now, you've served as Kenya's ambassador to Burundi, special envoy to the International Conference, the Great Lakes Region. Yes. Too many errors and L's on this particular one. And we are seeing a lot of things happening in the region, in the Horn. And that's why we thought, okay, let's bring in somebody who has actually had the boots on the ground to come and just help us understand what's happening in the region. There's stuff happening in Somalia for many years. There's stuff happening in Ethiopia. Now it's actually escalating in Uganda.
Sudan.
In Sudan. In southern Sudan. All these things that are happening in this region, is it stuff that you'd say was, happening slowly? Was it a slow burning fuse, or are there flare-ups, or are they just escalating situations?
One of the things I mastered by saying is that the Great Lakes region, and particularly the Horn, has been an area of interest to the international community for long. The UN has been seized with all the happenings that are happening in the Great Lakes region, and particularly the Horn. And one of the attractions that people have so much interest in the region is the resources we have in this region. Many of the countries that have the resources are trying to build nation states. People are trying to find out, is there anything in this nation state for us? Is there inclusivity? Do the governments we propose to be under have a concept of shared prosperity? If those things are not addressed, then obviously we have issues where outside influencers come in, those who may want to reap from the resources we have by dividing us, they see a gap. So you find the Great Lakes region, particularly the Horn, there is always an external factor to what is happening. Yesterday I listened to President Uhuru very carefully. State of the nation. You cannot talk about the state of the nation in Kenya without talking about the state of the region. Kenya, by umbilical cord, is tied to what is happening in the region. We have been lucky. Perhaps the flare-ups that we had in 2007, 2017, did not result in all-out wars that we are seeing in Ethiopia. But it could have happened, because all this were a result of people feeling they don't belong. Our constitution that we, 2010, tried to address some of these issues where we say regions will feel they belong through our devolution. Devolution was meant to address so that if we are people in Northeastern, they don't necessarily need to look up to State House to say, hey, where's our cake? We give them their cake and they see how to divide it. This is addressing some of the issues that make people to take up arms against a central authority. But as Kenya, we are concerned with what is happening in the region. Kenya has grown because of what we do in the region.
Because of what we do in the region?
What we do in the region.
Okay.
We are trusted in the region. I've been a special envoy in the region, but also I was ambassador to Burundi and co-facilitator to the Burundi peace process. I was Mkapa's co-facilitator. We don't say a lot what we do, but the peace Burundi is enjoying now, President Uhuru had a big hand in it. He personally, I was his lead man in Burundi. He personally saw to it that Burundi, the people of Burundi were able to talk. Within the EAC, if you go to Sudan, South Sudan, the comprehensive peace agreement is all Kenya. We actually made sure that there was peace in whatever.
We birthed the country.
We birthed the country. We midwifed it. Look at Kenya has been a host to so many refugees.
We still are.
Continues to be. Whether they were running away from Ujama. There were people who ran away actually from Ujama and came to Kenya from Tanzania. People came all the way from Malawi, Zambia, South Africa,
Zimbabwe,
Mozambique. We are seeing all these guys, the Msumbiji guys in Kenya. Somalia, we can't talk about. There are more Somalis Somalis in Kenya than there are Kenyan Somalis. These are all a result of Kenya having been a haven. But having been a haven also, we also attracted any investments that came to the region, either as services to take care of the refugees or support teams to the conflicts that were taking place in the region. All, if we wanted, financial services, Kenya became a natural host for all this. So our stability,
benefited.
Yes, our stability, because of our stability. We were not an island, but because we were stable, we were able to attract investments. So, in spite of the fact that we spend a lot of money also taking care of refugees and also getting involved in the peace processes around the region.
So taking all of those things into consideration, Kenya then has played big brother status regionally, obviously.
And
because of this, hand-holding in Sudan,
Yes.
hand-holding in Somalia,
Oh, yes.
hand-holding in Burundi, like you said. So then all of these things, I guess it was serendipitous in nature that then, because of that status, other things came about. You know, economic leg up here and there.
Exactly.
So then do you think that Kenya then bears the responsibility when things then now are starting to go wrong, like what we're seeing in Ethiopia, the constant unrest in South Sudan and Sudan? Does then Kenya have a responsibility to lend a hand towards making sure that things are kept at a dull roar?
A peaceful and stable region is very good to Kenya. Look at what we were just doing in Ethiopia recently. Kenya was moving into Ethiopia very fast. President Uhuru and Prime Minister Abiy were now buddies.
Yes.
Kenya was investing. Apart from, you look at Safaricom got a big deal. So, Ethiopia was now just opening.
Yep.
We are even looking at the role of KCB. Because
Kengen was already there.
Kengen was already there. So, a stable Ethiopia was good for us. And we were really moving in. Ethiopia is a big economy. So it is in our interest, and we are concerned that Ethiopia should not go down the path that it's going. Uhuru needs to play, and he's playing already, the big brother. Talk to the Tigrayans and the Ethiopia, the various stakeholders to tell them, my friends, the more you fight, the more other people from outside. And quietly, I think there are other people who would want to destabilize Ethiopia. Look at the Great Renaissance Dam that is being built. Who would be interested in making sure that Ethiopia does not go? I will not say it here, but you know that. So there are other people. So as Kenya, we have assisted in peace building across the region. But to a fault, when we went to South Sudan, the diplomats were there signing on the dotted line that we have, this is the comprehensive peace agreement. But we did not have the commercial people following us to sign on the dotted line for commercial deals. We are very poor at following up on reaping from the peace dividends in the region. And this is one area in which perhaps the government really needs to.
Right.
Yes.
Let's bring in somebody who's in government, the Principal Secretary for the State Department of East African Community in the Ministry of East African Community and Regional Development, Dr. Kevit Desai. Dr. Kesai, it's good to have you on the show again, unfortunately on video again, and yet you had promised to come in the studio.
It's a nature of work, The principal secretaries have to go and inspect work, and so I'm on my way from Mombasa, where we were establishing the progress we're making as government by way of transport and logistics sector, trying to promote that efficiency in terms of cost and time, and promoting that EAC intra-trade and extra-trade. And secondly, indeed, we were trying to look at specific value chains like the tea sector, government reforms to date, and the latest include the resolve towards attestation between tea exports between Kenya and Pakistan, which is essentially, technically, it means that there's a reduction in tax. But secondly, important to this is that we are fully integrated the export, the customs management system, integrated customs management system, which has greatly enabled the tea sector to benefit from great levels of efficiency and reduction of cost and time to export. And this is what we are trying to do, the value chains. In addition to opening up and launching and setting the foundation for 2 roads in Kipevu, as well as between Nyerere and Marika,
Right.
which will greatly facilitate trade and logistics throughout the African continent. So indeed, lots of progress. Very excited to be with you this morning. And indeed, the ambassador set the tone in terms of optimism and hard work and what needs to be done, and that inclusivity and development.
Dr. Desai, it's always good to have you. Hopefully one of these days you'll be in the studio with us, but we still appreciate the fact that you can join us. Some of the work that you're telling us you were doing in Mombasa yesterday was with regards to the Kipevu, and then just off what Ambassador was saying, are we taking advantage of the peace that we build in the region to, as a country, For example, you're the PS for East African Community. Are we taking advantage of the peace that we see around the region in Tanzania, in Rwanda, in Burundi, in Uganda? Are we as a country reaping the benefits of this?
Yes, indeed. We considerably are personally and within the context of our sovereign nation greatly benefited from intra-trade and extra-trade. Kenya is the location for manufacturing and value addition. And trade. We are a trading nation. We trade across the entire continent. And our people, with their skills and capacities, travel throughout East Africa and beyond. So indeed, there's progress being made, structural progresses. But one of the most profound developments indeed is under His Excellency President Kenyatta as chair of the East African Community. We reinvigorated our overall effort to be promoting inclusive development. And what that means is essentially that, we would like to propel and transform the way we look at the free movement of people, services, trade, manufacturing throughout the East African Community. And we are promoting that fundamental transformation by way of, even as we speak today, I launched the review of the Common Market Protocol, which means within the context of the EAC, the context of the continent, it's all about agreement. It's about consensus. It's about decision-making. It's about being able to appreciate that everything with respect to social, economic, and environmental issues will be solved under one roof. And this is what his resolve is, as His Excellency President Kenyatta, and the will of his government.
If I may ask, Dr. Desai, the problems that you encounter as you navigate these choppy waters of integration, what would you say are the three topmost issues that you are still having to contend with? Because we have a journey, we have a destination, and we haven't arrived.
Indeed, if you look at the top of my head, I'm losing hair, and also it's becoming white.
For a moment, I thought it was just a fashion statement.
It's all about consensus. It's about having this common vision under His Excellency President Kenyatta by way of having a shared and inclusive development, which means that every citizen within the EAC benefits by way of a pathway to trade, manufacturing, and services. It's also about self-reliance. It's time, within the context of Kenya's incredible development with respect to its 7 trillion economy, that we manufacture and value add as much as possible and reap the benefits of our hard work and resources to the maximum, which means that, we need to articulate systems of transportation, logistics, trade, manufacturing as an inclusive system, as an integrated system. But finally, it's about resilience. We are at an incredibly devastating time, not only with respect to the uncertainty that COVID has brought and the pandemic, but the shocks, the fragmentation that it's created, and the uncertainty. And I believe personally that it's about prosperity, how we hold on to prosperity. We re-engineer ourselves and build back better to achieve that prosperity for the partner states as well as the continent. And it's through the programs of the African Free Trade Area that we're progressively making a lot of progress by way of the East African Community. But I'd like to inform you and assure you that indeed I can sense a sense of security in the discussions so far. And I want to assure you that what is happening as far as the context currently is concerned, and which is the trigger for this uncertainty, indeed can be allayed by way of the legacy of protocols, frameworks, and structures that the EAC has embarked on, and that legacy which stands at several initiatives, which include, first and foremost, an agreement by all partner states towards a treaty. And what the treaty stands for and what it espouses, at its core, is a market-driven, people-centered community. It's not a trade bloc. It's about social issues, security issues, economic issues, environmental issues. It's about that collective, fully integral engagement towards our prosperity. And it's one of the reasons why we're progressive in terms of trade statistics and so on. But further to that, to further allay this uncertainty that you may have, is that within the context of the treaty, each member state signs up to various resolutions with respect to peace, governance, equity, the welfare of people, and this is enshrined in that treaty. Further to that, there's various programs and protocols and frameworks which include border governance, the inclusion of the youth towards security as a platform, as well as youth policies, the strategy on EAC and security, the protocols on peace and security, the protocols on EAC action plans to combat terrorism, the continental early warning instruments, the police chief cooperation organizations, all the way now going down to ministerial integration by way of ensuring that we have synergy amongst all forces and a collective responsibility by partner states as well as leadership. But there's also issues with respect to maritime and that cooperation that's ongoing. And most importantly, the political confederation, which hopes to promote good governance, democracy, strengthen electoral processes, promote peace within the continent. And the academia are fully engaged by way of the Nyerere Center of Peace and Research towards that policy movement. So what I'm trying to describe here is an ecosystem which looks at policies, legislations, regulations, standards in promoting peace and security. And what's enshrined in all these documents is that consensus and that decision-making which hopes to achieve, that environment which enables the prowess of Kenya's manufacturing and service sector and its sheer strength. If I take you to Busia or some of the border points, you find that we are a trading nation at heart.
Yeah.
And who's behind the trade? It's women. Women carry the trade. And so with all this in mind, and as government and the complex task of government of regulation and promotion of proportional engagement, we're trying to see to it always to engage partner states, and we are succeeding. We've come up with some good news, in the 41st ordinary meeting of the Council of Ministers, which I'll share as we go on.
Thank you. Having a conversation with Dr. Kevit Desai. He's a PS in the State Department for East African Community in the Ministry of EAC and Regional Development. Also joining us in the studio is Ambassador Ken Vitisia. He's a former ambassador of Kenya to Burundi and a special envoy to the International Conference on the Great Lakes region. We're having a conversation about the state of the Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes.
Or should I just refer to you as Your Excellency? What do you prefer?
Balos.
Omusedi.
Okay,
All
fine.
right. Okay.
Omusedi.
It is different from Omudadi.
No, it is very different from Omudadi.
Okay.
And it is probably slightly closer to Muhongo.
Yes. Muhongo.
Yes.
Right.
You have very eloquently stated how it is we are held in high regard within East and Central Africa. But surely, we must have some Achilles heel somewhere. There must be things our neighbors complain about us. And you, having been an ambassador, you would be right in the thick of it and you'd get to hear it. What are some of the complaints that our neighbors have about us?
Having been a diplomat in the region for a long time, I engage a lot with my colleagues from other countries within the region. I see we have narrowed down mainly to the EAC.
Yes.
And within the EAC, I'm seeing we have people who want to join because they're seeing something good in it.
Yes.
Somalia wants to join. South Sudan joined even when they were not even ready to join because I don't think they can be able to meet the criteria for the various protocols. We as Kenya are really pushing for DRC to join, and they want to join. So it is a good place that people think they need to belong, because the EAC is not really very political. It is more of economic and social development. But as I engage with my colleagues in the region, there's this feeling that there is some sort of sibling rivalry touching on jealousy. Some of them have been students in Kenya. They have seen how Kenya has grown when they are in turmoil. So they acknowledge one thing. They acknowledge that Kenya has grown when they were not at peace with each other.
Yes.
But they appreciate also the support that Kenya has given to them. Some of them went to school in Kenya. Some of them didn't pay a dime to go to school in Kenya. But then, as they have now come of age, they claim to have come of age, that means they have started to walk. They believe that Kenya needs to be seeded. Seeding means that you cannot have everybody playing the same game or running the same race.
Well, you can't be playing in the same position all the time.
You can't be playing the same position all the time. You need to be seeded. And Kenya needs to acknowledge that it needs to be seeded within the region. That they must give the region, some of the countries in the region some slack. You cannot expect Kenya and Burundi to pay the same amount of money for membership to the EAC, a subscription. You can't expect that. You can't expect South Sudan to do the same. They believe also Kenya, as a big brother, should also hold their hand in some of the development initiatives they have. I remember one of the issues that has really been coming up is the issue of these customs. We are talking about external custom regime. That is, things that come within the EAC should have an external custom. But then things within the EAC should be zero-rated. They have had a war with that.
Why?
One, Kenya has already got an industrial base. That's what they say. So anybody wanting to invest within the region will not choose Uganda, Tanzania, or whatever. They will choose an already established industrial base. So Kenya will be producing goods that they will sell duty-free to Uganda.
To the region.
To the region.
Yeah.
Kenya will not necessarily, many of the people, because we are at the port of Mombasa, if I really want to invest in the region and sell to Rwanda, will I go and invest in Rwanda? It is easy for me if I'm importing, to import, produce in Mombasa or Nairobi, and drive up country to Kigali. Volkswagen. I met the ambassador of Germany.
Yes.
In Kigali, and asked him, this investment of Volkswagen in Kigali, is it an economic investment or a political investment? He told me Kagame and some people in Germany are very close friends. And this is why this investment is here. Even the bolts we use to make this are coming from Nairobi. Most of the things that we actually come and put, this is a garage. He told me this is
just an assembly.
Yes.
It's an assembly plant.
This is a garage just putting together. Because he says if really Volkswagen wanted to invest in the region and make money, they will choose Kenya. So this is the reality.
So some of the countries then in the region are feeling that we already have a leg up. We already we are running a 200-meter race, but we are 150 meters ahead.
Yeah, they need us to tie one leg. They need one leg to be tied. But secondly, we must also not be complacent. As Desai will tell us, Kenya is selling less and less to the region. We are doing more of services, but selling less to the region. The region is also concerned that Kenya is selling things that it is importing as Kenyan products. And you know Kenyans how they are. These are issues that touch on our culture that other people are looking at. That a Kenyan comes and tells it is made in Kenya, you have to think twice. Because it could have been made in China and branded Kenya, and a Kenyan is actually... So we need to look at our culture of how we want to deal and trade with our neighbors.
Dr. Desai, as Ambassador says this, I'm curious as to what you'd have to say about that. If we're looking at a situation whereby the region might then be worried about the fact that Kenya is not selling Kenya, but then is staying in that position as chief custodian of the region at the same time. Can a balance be created, and should that be the position?
Indeed, I think that the ambassador has stated some of the concerns we all have as a nation at this particular moment. But on the other side of progress, we are trading increasingly more. And as Balozi said, it could be part of extra as well as internally manufactured goods. There are moments of low, as Balozi said. And, recently, let me share an experience. Kenya indeed is a manufacturing high-value add country, and we have invested greatly by way of roads, logistics systems, the entire environment towards creating manufacturing resilience. But at a recent initiative with respect to our efforts as the government and the country with respect to our friendliness and support for other partner states where we're trying to nurture manufacturing to achieve the 6th development strategy of the EAC, which espouses manufacturing as well as value addition and diversification as its key strategic thrust towards partner state prosperity. This was delayed because at a meeting recently on common external tariffs, and this technically basically means, how we nurture manufacturing, ensuring that taxation is adjusted in order to promote local manufacturing within the EAC. There was no consensus. Kenya and Tanzania stood at 33% on the 4th band. Uganda maintained 35%, and Burundi maintained 30%. Now, of course, this concerns us, and indeed this is a bit of a low period for government. But we want to seek the support of all, because what happens within the common external tariffs is that most of this is instigated and provoked by manufacturers in each country, which don't see the bigger picture, together with civil society and government. Of course, government sees the bigger picture, but we're getting thrusts from different associations and companies within member states. And so one of the decisions we need to make today in this platform and conversation is that we need to have an all-out approach, which means that our private sector has to create relations with private sector associations within the EAC. We as the government, through our bilateral engagements and our EAC engagements, continue with the excellent work in terms of promoting consensus and development. But all have to be involved, including the youth and civil society, to create that appreciation and that strategy to hold hands and take one step at a time into greater levels of economic generation. And this is something that really is a key issue, a key decision that needs to be made by all the viewers today. That how do we all be involved in this time, this movement, this great political support towards moving towards common external tariffs and then securing and ring fencing the entire region of 170 million people. And as Ambassador said recently, we've got the green light today from the 41st Sectoral Council to include Congo, which is another 100 million people. Promotes a trade route which is unimaginable from the Indian Ocean all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. Now, no one can argue that we don't have the potential to trade. Even if we make a toothpick, we'd be able to, sell to 270 million people within this context, but also trade upwards to the north and south. And so it's important. It's important that we all, as a nation, really make an effort to see how we build onto those relationships and deter this suspicion based on really factual information, statistics, data, and a growing strategy for growth. And this can't be done only by government. It has to be done by all stakeholders because we're all integrated. And therefore, when we trade, when we manufacture, and when we aim for such high heights of value addition, we all have to be collective towards our responsibility, our action, and our leadership. I think this will go away. This will go a long way.
But P.S., I believe that the toothpick needs to be made in Kenya or within the region, because we can grow our bamboo sector by making toothpicks within the region. 90% of our toothpicks are imported. So when you say that 100 million
What is this that causes the toothpicks to be important? Is it for lack of the raw material?
It's a common external tariff.
It's a common external tariff.
The tariff structure. How then do you explain that a trading nation 5,000 kilometers away trades 33% to the entire, for example, to Congo. And we only, as EAC, trade a meager 14%. How can that be possible in this time when we have so much in terms of our relationships? I mean, if I take you to Vitisia, there's no difference between, there's no border. Yeah. I mean, the communities interact, you know, we're all together, you know.
Could it also be...
question this.
Could it also be, PS, because of what Ambassador Canada mentioned earlier, there are other external interests and factors outside of the East African community that are also at play, that have a great interest in this region? That also everybody else is looking at the region as an extractive source.
Yes, indeed, you're absolutely correct. Because I mean, you know, at 1 billion plus people and 6.7 trillion worth of consumerism, we are naturally attractive as a continent for all sectors, whether it's construction, agriculture, etc., and so on. But what's absolutely critical is that, you know, we build an ecosystem with respect to a shared market, which means we need to address collectively fundamental issues like harmonization of policies, legislations, regulations, standards, building those road networks, which only stand at 5 to 7% throughout Africa, the ports and other kinds of key dedicated infrastructure, that coordination capability within the EAC. And towards that end, we're building a lot more institutional capacity. We're hiring more people, 64 more people, to strengthen that coordination capacity. But I think the ultimate issue here is that, and the challenge now that we need to address, is that it becomes difficult to implement policies, legislations, regulations, standards at partner state level because of sovereign issues too. And it's for that reason, you know, that we need to play a more collective role, a more engaging role, and keep sharing that larger vision, which is, you know, part of.
If I may ask, Dr. Desai, and also for you, I guess as well, Ambassador, is still stuck on that point that, you know, I understand the complexities in terms of coming together and getting that one tariff that will be acceptable around the region, but I'm still confused, not even confused, but I don't understand why it would be so difficult for nations as sovereign entities to make decisions on what you would then manufacture. Why would it be so difficult then to make a decision and say, this is what we are going to do, when we see other bilateral agreements between countries, for example? We see a lot of produce coming in from Uganda, for example, into the country Kenya, and they say we can sell this at a lower price, in a lot of times to the detriment of Kenyan farmers, for example, or other practitioners of agriculture. Why are those decisions so easy to make, but then when we graduate the conversation, it is then difficult from country to country to come about with a universal agreement?
I think one of the issues is the technocrats mean well. They are very good. If you look at their manuals and their agreements, excellent. Biggest problem, trust and enforcement. That's the biggest. The Tanzanians will
explain that.
So essentially, this is now moved from the realm of policy to politics.
To politics.
Okay.
In the issue of now enforcement, the Tanzanians, are Kenyans really enforcing what we have agreed? Do they trust that we are doing that? With our porous border with Somalia, are the Tanzanians trusting that what comes into Kenya is a common external tariff is enforced? So this is an issue that really needs to be looked into. Issue of comparative advantage. They need to go back to the drawing board and say Uganda can produce sugar better than Kenya.
So let
them produce the sugar.
Let us process it.
Yes, the leather industry. Tanzania has a lot of hides and skins. Why can't we assist Tanzania to be the ones to produce the shoes? Let's have our cotton industry to grow. Kenya, why don't you, your River Texas and all, to make the whatever? And then those industries that we want to protect, Tanzania will feel that if we have a common external tariff against leather products, it will assist me. Uganda will say against sugar, it will assist me. Kenya will say it's against textiles, it will assist me. Let us be protecting against what we are already producing. Let us not just protect. Look at Rwanda. Rwanda was at the forefront and saying we don't want mitumba. And I thought that was a good thing. Why should the Kenya or the East Africa be flooded with mitumba when we can produce clothes for our people to wear? Mitumba, also shoes. These are issues we need to look at. 90% of East Africans, they wear clothes from outside. I know, Muga, you might be having an Italian suit. Although it is made in River Road, they'll tell you it's an Italian suit.
Ambassador has actually just told me that everything I wear is from River Road. But Ambassador, Dr. Desai.
Yes.
Let me ask the question, because I'm listening to what the two of you are saying, the commonality of understanding, and the enemy of everything we're saying here seems to be self-interest. Because,
well,
please go ahead.
Yes. So, I mean, this is extremely exciting what you're discussing, because, I get a sense that, you're facilitating support in terms of government policy and this structure of our engagement in terms of integration. Now, if yet another decision that we really need to make within the context of the progress we've made in this conversation is that we need to have a cultural attitude as EAC with respect to made in EAC, grow EAC. And this is absolutely critical because, as you mentioned, that the challenges exist by way of, trying to implement, trying to initiate areas. Within the context of EAC, there's a very advanced and modern outlook in partner state governments, in the government of Kenya, by way of even selecting sectors. Like, we're focused on textiles, focused on automotive manufacturing, construction, areas of leather. So we've already mapped out the value chains, which are interdependent, by way of trying to ensure that we collectively focus on being competitive and being able to export into the continent. But here again, with respect to issues, with respect to challenges on implementation, the importance of allaying that insecurity by way of all the manufacturing stakeholders and traders, etc., becomes absolutely critical here to ensure that they are able to see and envision a much larger market. If you look at a typical business sector or a business trader or person, there are two things he wakes up for in the morning. The first is that, he has to have a clear sight of a market, which means that it has to be an honest market, which enables them to trade manufacturing efficiently and productively and innovatively, meeting standards and regulations and policies and so on. The second thing is that they would like to be involved in crafting their angle of policies, legislations, regulations, so that they're able to differentiate innovation and transformation into the market. So within this context, quite a lot is being achieved by way of trying to ensure that this basis of structures and mechanisms by way of the customs union and the common market are developing. Ongoing efforts towards the resolution and improvement of decision making. In fact, one of His Excellency President Kenyatta's pronouncements as chair is that we need to see how we promote greater levels of governance and transformation of decision making. But this indeed is a collective responsibility, and I really want to once again stress on that first decision. When we took up the chair, this is indeed an honourable role. It means that naturally we have to be painfully inclusive, but at the same time, an honourable role towards the development of the continent. And by doing so, His Excellency President Kenyatta is the chair of the summit, my ministers, the chair of the council.
Dr. Desai, your line is really has really gotten bad, but we appreciate everything that you've been able to share with us, and we understand, yes, that from this point you're heading on to Tanzania for more conversations. We hope to host you again and look at then the progress that is being made in the region within the East African community. Dr. Kevit Desai is a PS in the State Department of the EAC, in the Ministry of the East African Community and Regional Development. We also had in the studio Ambassador Ken Vitisia, former ambassador to Burundi and the Special Envoy to International Conference on Great Lakes Region. There's a lot that we haven't talked about what's happening up north, Ambassador, and I think maybe we should invite you one of these days soon So we can just try and understand. So what is happening in Ethiopia? What's happening in South Sudan, in Sudan itself? And how is that affecting what could be happening in the region? Asante sana for joining us.
Asante. And I'm readily available.
Asante.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.